This is the Utah High School Hoops Podcast, your source for sometimes informative, but always entertaining coverage of the Utah High School Hoops scene. With your host, Adam Beek. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm excited because I finally got somebody to join me, and it's my fellow UHSAA media credential holder for all of the incredible content that he is bringing. You guys probably follow him on Instagram under Utah Ballerz, where he waffles back and forth between, am I going to do anything? And then I'm going to blow up the internet. So I'm joined by AJ Jackson. And AJ, what I think is cool is we're both dads who just are hoops junkies, and we just like to talk about basketball, and that's pretty much it. That's it. Like, I don't have any ideas or anything. I just like to talk about it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun, and for me, it's been fun kind of watching my son grow up, over the last 5-6 years, and follow all the kids that are a grade above him, grade below him, and then obviously his grade at 2025. But yeah, definitely it's something that you kind of, now that he's a senior, you kind of sit back and say, it'd be really nice just to hang out and enjoy the senior year. But, because there's so many relationships and, these kids and how involved they get, it's fun to throw up some coverage. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm sure it'll be something, right?
Well, I think, and we're going to talk about 5A, and I think it would be pretty cool to cover a few things up front. So first of all, Hunter Jackson, AJ's son, is committed to CSI, I believe. Mm-hmm. So that's a massive congratulations. They're a top 10, national JUCO. I think I saw on Brandon Goebel's JUCO advocate poll that they were like 11th as of today. So it's an incredible program loaded with D1 talent. So huge congratulations to you and your family. I'm sure that I saw Jax Allen just committed to Utah State. He's out at Orem. And then today, the big breaking news was JJ Mandequit, who I know Hunter has played against, practiced with quite a bit with the Golden Prospects connection. Threw a lot of people off. I think a lot of people had him going to BYU and committed to Coach Danny Sprinkle and the Washington Huskies. So
yeah, I mean that's a great get for Washington. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of JJ. I think I'm a bigger fan off the court than I am on the court of his. 100%. I mean, obviously, I love what he does, but he's a good kid and he's genuine. Those are the type of kids you just wish all the success in the world to. Appreciate you mentioning, the CSI commitment for us. It was I was super impressed, and I know Hunter was too with the coaching staff. And then we went up there and kind of toured the facilities, and it's a phenomenal opportunity, and we're just grateful. Anytime you can, play beyond high school, you just count your blessings and get ready to, get the work in. But we have a lot here, right? You're in Utah. You mentioned Jax Allen committing at Utah State, which was phenomenal. Kind of could see that coming with the relationship with his brother up there. But then you got a guy like Noah Bendinger that committed at Boise State. And Noah did a really good job of keeping everything to the vest because, you saw little glimpses of where he was at. And all of a sudden, boom, Boise State, which I travel to Boise like 2 or 3 times a month. So I'm super excited for that. I'll be making sure I get tickets from him.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about that. But, and obviously Burgess over at BYU, you can kind of see that one developing there. And so it's super exciting for all these kids just to see, where they make their decisions to go to. And just so you know, this, Adam, but anywhere that you can go and play above and beyond high school is fantastic. Whether it's a high-level JUCO or whether it's Division I, Division II, NAIA, Division III. I mean, there's so many levels, but there's good basketball everywhere. And people, kind of look down on, the NWAC, and I'm like, no way. Like Chase DeGraffenried and, you look at some of those guys, Logan Whitehour, there's some really, really good players playing in that league this year that we've seen dominate here in Utah for years. And so, any chance that you get to play beyond high school, I think it's phenomenal. I love seeing it, especially kids that are my son's age, because I've been rooting for those kids for so long, and it's just so fun to see. And I'm, this is my official congratulations to all of them. I'm just super excited, and it's going to be fun. Let's battle it out and see what happens at the end of the year.
I think it's fantastic. Because I'm new, like AJ is my oldest, and so I am kind of following along with like the 2025,
Mhm.
2026, and 2027 classes. And now I'm like tuning in to watch Northern Kentucky games when I can to see like who JJ Apathchang is going to be playing with. I'm like, why am I watching Northern Kentucky play right now? And I don't even know what it's going to be like in the next few years. My wife's just going to be like, "What? You went downstairs to watch what?" And I was like, "Well, CSI was playing was playing Slick
Yeah.
in some tournament game, and it was airing on KSL, and I had to tune in to watch Hunter play, or like Cena's coaching down at UVU, so I'm like
Yeah.
watching UVU games just because Cena is a grad assistant. It's like it's great.
It's cool.
It's a cool community for sure.
Yeah, it's a great community, and like I forgot, I should have mentioned JJ a part of that 2025 class. We're
Sure.
excited to see what he does. He's going to have a massive year for your Judge Bulldogs. I can't see anybody stopping him. I think he might make a run at Player of the Year just because of the numbers he's going to put up, which is they're going to be phenomenal. And you know what? A lot of people have been down on JJ for a long time. I've never met the kid personally, but you know what? I love his game. He's resilient. He's fierce. He doesn't care what anybody says or thinks about him. He just goes and he goes and he goes. And you know what? Congratulations to him for getting that commitment at Northern Kentucky. I'm with you. I'm paying attention too and just rooting for him and his family. And I think it's phenomenal. I think it's great.
It's great, yeah, and I'll just echo before we get into kind of going through 5A. I know we got some questions from all of the dozens of fans that we have out there who want to hear us wax poetic on 5A Utah basketball. But I'll just echo what you're saying. The the levels of basketball, and if you're able to do it, go watch. Go to a Westminster game and watch Division II basketball. My son and I got to go out to watch Siena Heights play Taylor University, an NAIA game in the middle of Indiana, and it is
Yep.
an elite. It is so much better of basketball than you think in your mind. Because I think people think like, oh, it's just like a step above 5A. It's like this little tiny leap, and it's like, no, 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 no. It is. There are maybe some levels when you get into like there's the NCCAA Division II, which is the
Oh
National
yeah.
Christian Collegiate Athletic Association. There might be some levels of college basketball that's like it's probably equal to or a step up, or a team like Orem or LCA, or certainly like Wasatch or Utah Prep probably going to go out and beat some of these teams.
Yeah.
But for the most part, your NAIA Division III, National JUCO, NWAC, Division II, certainly Division I, all those levels are way more than you think they are. I'll just tell you that right now. Until you go watch them, you don't realize the level of athleticism, skill. I watched a 7-footer from Australia barely get into a game. Big, strong 7-footer couldn't even play at like an NAIA level. It was crazy. So
Yeah, I mean, to your point, if you can get out and watch some of these practices or games, obviously Salt Lake Community College probably has the best junior college player in the country, in Xavier Edmonds, who just signed with TCU. Then you got a guy like Mason Bendinger who drops 45
it was
for
nuts.
SLC. Yeah, I mean the kid's been a bucket for years. First team All State, obviously Woods Cross, but then you go over to Snow College. Snow College is undefeated, ranked in the top 25. And guys like Isaac Garrett from Pleasant Grove, Chancellor Hill, those guys are just killing it this year. So, if you think, oh, I'm going to go play here, you think it's going to be that easy?
It's not.
Go pay attention and go sit through a practice and see what you got. We're up at CSI and it was fun because there was people hitting their head on the top of the backboard. Like there's some ballers at those levels, and it's all over the place and it's fun. It's great.
Yeah, no doubt. We just when you were mentioning that, we forgot, and we'll talk a lot about Orem, I'm sure, in our 5A preview. But we've also got Chance Dastrup, who's committed to Long Beach State, so is another guy that it's like, now I'll be tuning into Long Beach State games. I guess it's just part of the deal. Well, here's what I was thinking: is we should go through. We can go through and kind of go region by region. We don't have to spend a ton of time on each region because I'm sure that people want to hear us talk about the top 4 to 8 teams or whatever it is, and you've got a whole bunch of questions that we're going to talk through. But I thought we could at least start with at the region level. And how do we want to frame this? Like, who's your favorite? Maybe who's the sleeper team that people aren't talking about in region?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that we got, on my page today was, predict the region winners and give us a sleeper team from each of those regions. So we can definitely look at the
Okay.
regions and see what we got up there. I mean, obviously, Adam, I think it goes without saying there's been a ton of movement, this year within the state. Now, we're not going to get into how they got where they got and the particulars on that, but there's been some movement, and you know what? Let's rock with it and see what happens on the other end. Again, and I think you said this many times, a bunch of high school kids showing up in a one game and you're out scenario. There's nothing written in stone this year. I promise you, there's going to be teams that are going to jump up and bite some teams. Obviously, we've got a couple of heavy favorites in my mind. But you know what? How often is it that you actually see the heavy favorites in that final game? It doesn't happen every year. And so it's going to be an interesting tournament when it gets there. But there's a lot of teams that have some guys, and I'm big on guard play, obviously, and guard play is what wins in the tournaments. You're going to see a lot of good guards have the ability to knock some good teams out come tournament time. But you know what? It's going to be a fun year. And 5A, I'm super excited. Obviously, I got a vested interest in 5A.
Yeah.
Let's get through it.
Listen, you're a brave man, because I have refused to say anything about 3A just because of my my vested interest. But you know what? You're just like, it's a senior year. Let's just go for it.
I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and I'll downplay, what they're going to do this year. And, you can pick them last in the region and we'll just keep it moving. How's that?
Utah Ballerz picks Woods Cross to win 5A. You heard it here on the Utah.
You heard it here, but it wasn't from me. I love what they got going there. I think that there's some guys that are going to surprise you this year in that region, but we'll get to those guys as we get there.
Let's just go start with Region 4, and we'll just go down the list, right? How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
So Region 4, we've got Cypress, Granger, Hunter, Juan Diego, Kearns, Taylorsville, and West Jordan, just northeast of South Jordan, because that makes sense. So AJ, I'll start with you. Who do you have as a favorite, and who do you think is a sleeper? We may end up with the same, but this is a tricky one. I feel like this region.
It is. I mean, this region was wide open last year. Obviously, when I watched West Jordan at the beginning of last year, I was like, these they're just not it. And then all of a sudden they get into region play and take off, right? You had the Blacken kid that really played well last year for them. But obviously, a lot of these teams are retooling this year. I think obviously the favorite's going to be Juan Diego. They've got the big in Luke Meyer. They got, I believe, is the young kid at the point guard position. So they got some guys that can play. They lost Grahidi. He went to Anthem Prep, I believe. And so I think that, Juan Diego is going to be a team that probably is the favorite in this one. I absolutely love Cypress because I know you are too. I'm a huge Coley fan. I love what they have going there. Coley is going to lead that team. He's going to put up a lot of points, and he's got a really good sidekick next to him. So I think it's going to be Juan Diego and Cypress. Those two teams are probably going to be the front runners in that one. But you got a team like Hunter. I mean, how you going to count out a kid like Dominic Fanaloa who's going to come in there and could hit you for 35 on any given night and give you an L? Outside of those three teams, I think it's really wide open as far as we're going to have to see a lot more from teams like Granger and Kearns. Not sure what they have coming back. We play them next week. Taylorsville, West Jordan. Not really sure what you're getting with those teams. It's too early to tell. But I think Juan Diego, I think Cypress are pretty, two pretty good teams. And then obviously see what they put around Dominic at Hunter. But that's my take on that region. I think Juan Diego is the one that you got to kind of keep an eye on there.
Yeah, I agree. It's I picked Juan Diego, but I think it would not surprise me if Cypress pulled it off. I think that when you look at guard play and you look at, not only what Coach Trey does at Cypress, but Coley and Beckham, I think I was really impressed with the little bit I watched the Utah Top 50, watching Beckham Bales play. I was like, he's gotten better. Like, it's cool to watch fall basketball, not because it's great basketball, but to see like who's putting in the work and who's getting better. And he was a kid that really stood out to me. Again, I watched one game of him, so somebody could be like, he was terrible, and the rest of it, and I would be like, okay, fine, whatever. But I thought he played really well.
A lot of those teams were in like fall leagues too. Like I know, in our case, there'd be like 2 fall league games and then a 9 o'clock top 50 game. You're like, oh, this guy hasn't improved. Wait a minute, just you're in your third game of the night. That's
Yeah,
pretty funny.
I did an episode about the kind of the last day of the Utah Top 50, and um, I was a little bit underwhelmed.
Mhm.
And it's not because it's not the players' fault. It was just like it wasn't at the Delta Center. It wasn't there was a lot of guys missing for various reasons from the games, and there's still good games, but it was like it felt a lot like pickup ball with an occasional
Mhm.
foul called, which you get to see. I'm not saying it's unimportant. You get to see how guys react in that. But yeah, we don't have to go into it. I just was I my point is I thought Beckham played really well. Um, we played Kern, so Judge played Kearns in just like a fall scrimmage. They had a couple guys transfer, Zion Brown
Mhm.
from Cyprus, and they had another guy from Cyprus transfer over there. So they could make some noise in kind of a wide open region. West Jordan, I think, is going to be pretty young. They graduated a lot of guys, and so it's a high school basketball question, right? It's like maybe there's a freshman there who comes out of nowhere that you're like, I don't even know, or a sophomore who was just on the or was on the freshman team last year who grew 6 inches. Like I don't know about this region. I think the betting odds are probably with Juan Diego, but it wouldn't surprise me any the other way.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
with you. I mean, I was really impressed with Bayless as well. I got to watch him a few times in the top 50. He's one of those kids that I really like. Those kind of kids that they're not talked about all the time. They're like talked about maybe in terms of tiers, right? They're like the next guy's up. And I really like he plays with an edge. He's really solid, can shoot it. I mean, he's one of those kids I would love to have on the team, and he's playing with another kid that I feel the same way about. And so you put those two together, that's a really, really good backcourt. And obviously the coaching is going to be there. I like that team. I just think Juan Diego, obviously you have the Luke Meyer factor in there, really good big. And then
Yep.
Stockton Young is excellent too. So that's going to be a fun matchup to pay attention to.
Yeah, losing Rahidi is tough. I got to watch him play quite a bit. Him and AJ played together on Team Utah, but I agree. I think having that 1-2 punch at Juan Diego with Stockton and Luke is going to be tough. So your favorite region, Region 5 and 5A, we got Bonneville, we got Bountiful, Box Elder, Clearfield, Northridge, Roy, not pronounced Wah, as a Colorado Avalanche not fan. I've learned that it's Roy here, not like the famed goalie. The Viewmont Vikings, and then Woods Cross. I'm gonna start because I don't know a lot about like Bountiful. Obviously, is going to be tough again. I think Charlie Smith and Bryson Heath they're just tough guys. I think Coach Gus is a great coach. Um, I I think it's going to be your Woods Cross Wildcats coming out of that region. I'm usually a believer in the team with the best player has the best odds of winning that game. It's not always the case, right? But especially in high school basketball, because it's limited to 5 players, I really like Hunter's game a lot. I know that you don't, you can be really critical about it, but I can certainly talk about it. I think he's going to be playing with an edge. He's gotten stronger. He's just a kid who puts in the work, and you know that more than anybody. I think that Bryson Watson is going to bring a lot to it. And it sounded like there was a big that looked like he was coming up that's been making some noise. So I think that this is the year for Woods Cross to come out of that region and quite candidly probably scare some people in the 5A state tournament, because I think that Hunter's on a mission. I really do. And I'm sure you can speak to that more than you are the expert. You are the local expert on your own son. I could tell you everything good and bad about my son as well. But that's where I would go with. just based off of the very little bit of information I know about this region. But you probably know them better than most, so I'll let you run with it. But I got Woods Cross, and my I guess surprise team would be not much of a surprise, but it would be Bountiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at those two teams and you can flip flop them, right? Just as easy as picking one versus the other. I'm with you. I love Coach Gus. I think he's a great man. I like what he did last year with that group and kind of changing the culture, making it his own. I thought that was fantastic. I'm a huge fan of Bryson Heath. I love how he plays. I think that team comes and goes with how he plays.
Right.
I think that he'll have a bigger role this year. Just
is he one of the most
that. Here's the thing about Bountiful is that they're younger groups.
Sorry.
I think so. I don't think. I mean, obviously, last year you had Carson Smith and you had the bigger names there, but really, based on our experience when we played them, if Bryson Heath didn't perform, Bountiful was we were in the game, right? Like it was right there. And I think this year, obviously, he's going to have to take on a little bit more of the load. But I love what he does. He's hard nosed. He doesn't say anything. You don't really hear a whole lot about him, but he is a really good basketball player. Really good player.
Very good.
Really like what they got going there. And the younger guys that they have at Bountiful, they're used to winning. Like that, those groups are used to winning. The JV last year was very successful, and I watched a couple of their JV games last year. The ball was just popping. And they have some talented kids that'll fit right in alongside Bryson, alongside Carson. Or not Carson, Charlie. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be competitive. I think in that region, if you look up and down that region, Bonneville's got Ben Tesh coming back. He's a good player. I just don't the problem with Bonneville is typically they're landlocked schools, so you're not getting a lot of move-ins, right? There's not a lot of fresh traffic rolling through there. Coach Beck is a very good coach at Box Elder. But he's young. He'll admit it. His team is young, and I think they're going to be good in the next couple of years. I'm not sure, what this year's going to look like. I know they're going to compete. I know that place is tough to play. So he'll have those guys ready to go. Clearfield's another team you don't really hear about. They don't really have a lot of names. But last year they didn't either. And you know what? They had a pretty decent squad last year. Northridge, same thing. They're going to be young. Roy's got the Faulkner kid, the guy that's a really good kicker. He's a great kid, Colby Faulkner. I love him.
Yep,
kid. He's a great kid. And actually played pretty well in the top 50 in a couple of games that we saw him. That was here, but he's a good. But those teams: Roy, Northridge, Clearfield, Box Elder, Bonneville. I think they're just going to be a dogfight. Viewmont's a team that you're going to want to watch out for, and the reason why is because I expect Dres Jensen to have a big year for Viewmont. The thing with Viewmont that I don't know about is that, in the last couple of years, I mean, every time that somebody finds a rhythm, the good news is they subbed them out and brought 4 or 5 guys, new guys into the lineup. I'm not, criticizing the coaching and his philosophy, but I don't understand that. You're not going to get in a rhythm playing that way. But I hope that it changes this year. I'd like to see Dres get an opportunity to show what he can do as a lead dog on that team. And I think that he's good enough to help them get some wins. Now, yeah, he's a good player. He's a really good player. Picked up an offer in the NWAC and also picked up a football offer. He's a super good athlete, and he's a very underrated basketball player. I've been a fan of Dres since, I had a chance to coach him when he was in 8th grade. And so I always liked his game. Obviously, you got Bountiful. You got Woods Cross. You talked about Hunter a little bit. Kid that I want to, you're gonna hear a lot about. You've heard a lot about his brother already on this podcast. But Elliot Bendinger is going to have a really, really good year for Woods Cross. The kid is super athletic. He can score in many ways. If you think about, Mason Bendinger, basically 2 years, as a sophomore, that's what you got. You got another one coming. And he's going to be really good player. And so I expect him to have a good year along with, I think, Ellis a junior this year, actually. But then you got Madden Johnson, who's going to step into that starting role. Madden played with prospects all summer and looks really, really good. He's consistent. And those guys that you mentioned, Bryson Watson, you expect those guys to step in and deliver, and last year, when, Woods Cross had the ball, they didn't have the shooting that they have this year. So I think that's going to help out spread the floor a little bit as far as Hunter goes. So it should be fun. I think at the end of the day, you're looking at, preseason wise, which means nothing. I think it's Bountiful versus Woods Cross. And, I got my popcorn and I'm ready to go check it out. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I will definitely reiterate exactly what you're saying, which is this is preseason talk about high school basketball. Put zero. I mean, someone's gonna be like, "You're sleeping on us." We probably are, and I've responded to everybody with this, like, well, then just go prove us wrong. Like, just go prove somebody wrong. That's the best part about it, because what your preseason ranking is does not look at Florida State this year in football. They were a preseason number 4 team. People are
Lost the
paying a
first two
lot of
games.
money, and they are 1-9.
Yeah.
Just fired a bunch of coaches. Just go show people. Okay, let's go down. Let's go down here to Region 6. We've got Alta, Brighton, East, Highland, Olympus, Skyline, and West. So this is obviously one of the regions that is typically just an absolute struggle. I mean, there's some epic battles in this region for sure. There were last year. Give me your thoughts on Region 6.
Yeah, and did you notice how I got out of Region 5 without actually picking a winner? That was pretty good. That's strategic on my part.
I'm very
but let's talk about Region 6. Obviously, the favorite in my mind is Highland. Got news this week that Jordan Oberholzer's leaving Weber and coming into Highland. I think that's confirmed now. And you got Jordan, you got Chunk, Isaiah Drisdom running side by side. They've been running together for years now. And when those two are playing side by side, the offense looks easy at times because Jordan's such a good passer. He's such a good facilitator, and he will take on that role of making sure everybody eats. And I think the big part of that is that it will allow Isaiah to step in and be more assertive. This team will go as far as Isaiah Drisdom takes them. I said that to Isaiah during Top 50. I had a chance to talk to him. I love his game. You saw a couple of games during Top 50 where that Isaiah shows up. I don't care who you are in the state of Utah, he's gonna take care of you. Like he is that talented. I'm a big fan of his. I've been that way, for the last couple of years. But to look at Highland, you got Oberholzer, you got Drisdom, you got the Anderton kid who can shoot the lights out. You got probably one of the toughest matchups one-on-one in the state in By Higbee, who's absolutely come out of nowhere and really made a name for himself. He looked fantastic in Top 50. The biggest key here is with Soren Reese. I want to see Soren underneath the basket, not floating out to the three-point line as much. I think if he plays inside out, allows those guys to get him the ball where all he has to do is catch and dunk it. Highland is a team that you're going to want to take notice of because I think they're a team that can make a run all the way to the end. I'm excited to see what they got. Huge addition, bringing J.O. in there as well. But let me touch on some of these other ones real quick. Obviously, Alta, lost a lot. But if you've seen Dash Riser play in Top 50, you realize that they're probably going to be all right because he looked phenomenal in some of those games. And obviously Zach Papke, some of those guys, they have a bunch of guys around them that kind of complement Papke and Reiser. So I'm excited to see what they do. East, I don't really know a whole lot about other than, they got a new coach, Landon Cummings, a guy that we like, taking over the helm there. Olympus, I'll tell you what, I said this on my stories the other day. I think Olympus might have one of the best one-on-one players in the state of Utah, and that's Gavin Lowe because he's phenomenal. I've seen him a couple times in the fall. He looks phenomenal. His shot looks good. His mid-range is solid. He's extended his range. Yeah, he's extended his range, better than it was last year. I think that Olympus is going to surprise some people. I don't think you can pencil them in for the state championship like you could with Jordy and Dutch for 3 straight years, but they're going to be good. So this region, I think it comes down to Highland. I think Brighton's going to be solid. I love, on the outside, Bradley Buckets, Bradley Easton. It's one of my favorite players in the state. I got a chance to coach him. Very coachable kid. I love him. By the way, he's committed to Denver University, which is fantastic. Congratulations to him. But Jackson Soto is going to have to be the guy that's going to take the pressure off. Get Bradley some of those shots. And how does he do that? He's aggressive, gets to the rack, draws a lot of attention, and then Bradley can find his spots to get open. Because if you get open shots for Bradley Buckets, you're going to be all right. So I think Brighton's going to be a team to be reckoned with. I think this region comes down to Highland, and then you got Olympus, Brighton, and Alta are going to be battling there. Skyline's going to be improved. They got the Wilson kid from Park City that's coming in there. I just think that Olympus, the Brighton, the Alta, they got that championship medal about all 3 of those teams. They're solid, they're experienced in some of those key areas. But I think Highland, that region is going to be Highland at the end of the day.
Yeah, I what did you call it? You called me a Highland Homer at one point, and it's true. It's totally true.
I did,
Uh,
I did call you that.
but it's true. I mean, I think they're the best team in the region. I think that we'll get to this, but I think there's an argument that they are the team that could they're in the conversation at least for a team that can win it all, put it all together for a tournament run. We saw it last year. Jordan coming in is a really big deal for that team. Just to all the points you made, he's an engine that can just get a team going. I think it's Highland, and then I think that Alta is the team that's going to actually surprise some people. I think some people are writing them off just because they lost so much, but Dash is he can just take over a game. Gavin can do the same thing.
Yeah.
At Olympus, but anytime you have somebody who's going to have the ball in their hands and be a high usage player that can just say, all right, we're down 6. We're gonna run, we're just gonna spam the pick and roll, and I'm just gonna go get buckets. And as long as we can get stops, and I think that they're both so well coached, they're gonna be able to get stops. I think there's gonna be a couple of times that we're like, wait, what just happened? Dash drop 45. I mean, he's got that kind of game in him for sure.
He's tough. I mean, the other guy that I would say, and I was talking to Isaiah about this. I said, hey, you got to recognize when you're down 4, you're down 6, you are the stopper. Meaning, like, you put an end to that run by pulling, Isaiah and Vi in a pick and roll, or pulling Soren out on a pick and pop because he can stretch the defense. I love those abilities or those options for those type of teams. But I agree with you. Dash is probably one of the hardest kids to cover in the state because he's so freaking low. He's so good with the dribble, and he's got a pull-up game that's soft, it's fluid, and he's a bucket. Like he's going to be really good. And Pappy is strong too. Pappy's added to his game. Woods Cross actually played Alta in the fall ball with that. I mean, Dash wasn't there, but it went down to the wires. Really, really good game. The only thing that I would say about Alta is I need to see, what kind of size they have at the end of the day, like what the final roster looks like. Because I think that Highland does have decent size. They have some with Soren in there that can block shots, and I think Higbee's underrated as far as size goes. So it'll be fun to see. But I'm with you. I think that a team like Alta they're capable of putting anybody out at any time for sure.
Yep. All right, let's finish up here with Region 7. We've got Cedar Valley, Maple Mountain, which you found out is located down in Utah County.
It's down south somewhere.
Yeah. The Orem Tigers, Salem Hills, Spanish Fork, Springville, Timpview, and Wasatch. Before we get going, I will say this is very clear. This region might have the best mascot. The combination of mascots in this region is pretty solid for 5A. You've got some Wasps and the Dons and the Aviators. I mean, they didn't mess around. Even the Red Devils, which is like straight out of Waterboy, if you remember.
My high school mascot was the Red Devils, Evanston Red Devils.
The Evanston Red. It's better than the Yuma High School Criminals in Yuma, Arizona. All right.
And obviously, I'm a fan of the Golden Eagles now, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you better go get some Maple Mountain merch so you can wear it up to the CSI games.
Yeah, I know. I'll be at CSI on Saturday. I'm going to be getting plenty in the bookstore over there. They got some really cool colors. I like that stuff. It's fun.
Yeah,
but when you look at this, region.
One random thing about my life is I love college bookstores. I just think that they're I love looking at the merch. I just love the student center. Anytime I'm traveling for work, there's a big college nearby. I'm just going to go not creepily. It's not weird. Is that weird? Maybe it's weird. But I just think that it's such a cool environment because there's so much life and energy that sends to circulate around. So anyway, that's a random fact. Let's get to it's way more interesting.
It's definitely a credit card puller when you walk in there because you're definitely pulling the credit card out and you're going to be throwing down some cash on some merchandise. That's for 100%.
Sure. Okay, so you told me before the call that you had Salem Hills.
Yeah, I mean, no, I didn't, unfortunately. Shout out to my guy Chase. Chase doing Chase-like things. Hear nothing but good about him, up in college. But if you look at this region, I really think that there's 3.5 teams that you pencil in if I was to give you a final four, right? Obviously Orem, obviously Timpview. I think Highlands in there, and then my 3.5 is going to be Springville. Obviously, you have the most dominant big man in the state of Springville. You got Jamin Sondra, who I think is phenomenal. He just went on a visit to Purdue. He's big time. He's a big time player.
Yep.
I don't think Jamin realizes how good he can be. And if he figures that out before the season starts or before region starts, a lot of these teams are going to be in trouble because the kid is solid. He can shoot it outside, but I think that if he went in the post and you fed him every time down the floor, he's probably going to just, strap you on his backpack and take you all the way to the Final Four. I love what he does. And obviously you got the Miller kid who just committed to UC Irvine, I believe.
Yep.
So anytime you have multiple D1 commitments on your team, you better be considered one of the favorites, right? Orem, obviously a juggernaut. Bringing in Burgess, I think, was a big deal there. Jack Allen came before last year. Chance, you mentioned Chance, and I think that a lot of times that gets overlooked. But I've been watching Chance Dashup since I think eighth grade. Youngblood. I watched him absolutely take teams apart. The kid is really tough. He knows that offense probably better than anybody, and he knows exactly where people are going to be, and he knows how to execute that. And you need that when you got those guys around him like he does. Simeon's over at Orem now. And the one thing about Orem is that the guy that most people don't even talk about, Trey Hyatt, I think is probably the key to that team actually making that championship run, because he does everything that you need him to do. He'll rebound inside of 4 or 5 feet. He's got that nice little soft jump hook over the left shoulder. He's fantastic there. He's a solid player. We know what Jack Allen's about. We know what Chamberlain Burgess is about. Burgess looks great. His offensive game has come around. He's really worked hard on, extending his range out to 3-point line. The team that I haven't talked about yet is Timpview. You look at Timpview and what they have back. I think Timpview has the X factor when it comes to 5A basketball, and that's Dean Ruckert. At his size and his ability to effortlessly shoot the 3 ball over whoever's guarding him, it just makes it's a game changer. But then you look at guys like Will Openshaw, who can extend the floor as well. Also picked up a D1 offer lately, I believe, from Pacific, but he's great in the paint around the rim. So, and then they got Tollenstrup, who can step out and shoot the 3. Timpview has a lot of pieces that are going to match up really well with Orem. I mean, that region is so good. It's really top heavy, but it's really, really good. It's going to be exciting to see how it plays out. I'm a huge fan of JJ Sarup at Wasatch. His game has grown considerably. I got a chance to coach him at the Great Western Classic too, and it was so fun to watch. He can shoot the mid range, he can shoot it out the 3, and if you're not careful with him, he'll drive through and he'll dunk on your best player. But defensively, he also is a really good shot blocker as well. So Wasatch is going to be a team that's going to be scary. But when you look at this, you got Springville, you got Timpview, you got Orem. Teams like Cedar Valley. Imagine if everybody stayed at Cedar Valley. Hadfield, and then you had Jack Allen was at Cedar Valley at one point,
Yep.
and obviously Owen, I believe, is still there. That team would have been scary, but I think it comes down to Orem versus Timpview with a sprinkle of Springville in that region. I really like what Orem has. They're well coached, and they got the guys around them. But Timpview's got Dean Ruckert. It's hard to bet against that.
And it's a wild thing that did not come up about Orem, which just speaks to, I think, their depth, is arguably the best athlete in the state, Kai Wesley.
Yep.
So you have a 6'8", 240-pound athlete who is just like I'm not saying he's the afterthought, but it's like you go down this list of players and it's like, oh yeah, and also they have this other defensive weapon who can, he had multiple games last year where he had a near 20-point double-double. So, I think that for all of the talk about, deservedly so, of their D1 players at Orem, Trey Hyatt, and Kai Wesley, these are guys that are just going to come in, and if they're playing against the 7th and 8th best players at Highland because of injury or foul trouble or whatever, these are players who are the best player on most teams in 5A. And that's what I think is really scary about Orem, is that they can go pretty deep and they can mix and match lineups based on how you are. I don't know about the depth of a Highland or of a Timpview, or of a Springville, right? Like, I just don't outside, you've got, Andrew Miller, like you mentioned, going to UC Irvine. Jamin is obviously a stud. Mason Hansen.
With Hall's in that mix there too. He'll be a year better than he was last year. Played with Utah Gold all summer.
Yep, and they've got a guard as well who was young, who came in when Judge played him last year, and he just tore us up.
Yes, it's probably Swift. He's got a beautiful little mid-range game.
Oh my gosh,
just like Pops. So his dad was a phenomenal mid-range player at BYU.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He is an absolute bucket. So, yeah, I mean, so let's kind of pivot then into sort of you've already mentioned your top 4 teams.
Let me mention 2 players I think we overlooked though real quick. So one of them for Timpview, we talked about their depth, but Mason Ford obviously is phenomenal, and he's a tough matchup because he's 6'4", all of 6'4", maybe even 6'5". He can shoot the 3. He's really
so high. He
shoots it really high. Made some clutch buckets in the state tournament last year, so he's ready. And then also you got Isa. I can't pronounce his last name.
He is an absolute dog on the court.
He is, and I think that's a kid that you can say, hey, go guard this guy, and he's gonna make life tough on him. And I think he can disrupt a lot and allow some of those guys. I mean, you got Telestrup, I think is 6'7". You got Will Openshaw, I think is 6'9". I mean, they've got and Ruckert at 6'7". I mean, they've got all kinds of size. They got the dogs up front. I mean, they've got some guys like.
Yeah,
and I know they're relishing because everybody's talking about Orem, but I think Tippy's like, oh, let's go. I think it's going to be exciting to see what happens.
Awesome. No, I'm glad you pointed them out. All right, so you kind of already said your top 4, and I wish I could argue with you, because I love nothing more than being the person who makes an argument. Would it be surprising if, say Juan Diego gets a good draw because, and they end up with like a top 4 or 5 seed, and they make it into the top 4 because Highland has to play Timpview in the, I don't know how all the seedings are going to work. Like something like that would not be surprising, or Cypress for that matter, if we're looking at that same, or Woods Cross. There are teams I think that have it in them that if given the right draw can make that run. And when you get that momentum going, look at Lehigh last year, right? You start doing the things and winning the games the way that you want to win them. And in a state tournament, in a single elimination state tournament, obviously Lehigh was incredible, but the way they put it on Corner Canyon was absolutely insane to watch. And so I would agree with you that those are the top 4 teams, and I would not. It would be probably expected that if the brackets lined up, that those 4 would be kind of your final 4. And on the outside, I think we probably already covered. I would throw Juan Diego. I would put Cypress, Woods Cross, Olympus, Alta. You brought up Wasatch. I got to watch JJ play a lot of basketball with Team Utah, and he is just it's my best player rule. There's going to be a lot of times where he's the best player on the court, and he's an athlete and he plays the game the right way. AJ, one of my son's friends, who went to Judge but lived up near Wasatch, decided to stay there, named Ike Mitchell. So he's going to be at Wasatch. But what it boils down to me is really the unknowns, because with every team outside of Orem, you can name 4 or 5 players, but something always happens. Look at what happened to Chet Holmgren and the Oklahoma City
Thunder. You put Timpview in that. I think there's 2 teams that you can put in that category. I think Timpview is every bit as good as Orem is.
No, I'm saying in terms of depth. I think
exactly.
But I'm saying I don't know. We've got there's kind of 4. There's 5 guys at Timpview, and then beyond that, like I'm a huge fan of Braxton Wilkerson. I've been watching him play now since 7th or 8th grade.
Lefty,
tremendous football player. He is he's got the most unorthodox shot you've ever seen. And wouldn't you know it, the thing just goes in all of the time. I mean, he hung points on EYBL teams. He had 27 against an
I remember that.
EYBL team. So, but I don't know. That's kind of my general point is like,
Yeah.
I think that there are some unknowns here. And my point about like Chet Holmgren with the Thunder is like injuries happen, eligibility things come in. There's just stuff that happened. You know, Jordan isn't going to be able to play likely until halfway through the year because of the transfer rule.
Yep.
And so how is he going to integrate into the team is, you know, there's like Bodie Dodge is a really good player at Highland. And so there's just all of these factors I think that are going to play themselves out. That's why we play the games. But so that's what makes I think 5A a little bit more wide open to me is sort of that unknown.
Yeah.
And I flexes both ways.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's three teams. I think there's two teams. I think Timpview, I think Orem are the two teams that have the depth, the size, and the studs, right? I think Highland on paper is in that top three. I don't know where I put the fourth team. I think the fourth team, I think you dropped Springville down into amongst the other teams in those groups. I think, you know, with Alta, with Olympus, you know, Bountiful, which I think, you know, Brighton, and I'm probably missing a couple, but I think there's all those teams in that mix, that second tier, right, if you will. I think there's a tier one, a 1A with Highland, and then everybody else. But the problem is that you get somebody that's cooking on the right night, right? And any one of those teams are going to get sent packing, right? And so, you know, I think that, and I know that Jason's going to look at this because 2 years ago, Woods Cross, coming off a championship appearance, brought back Mason Bendinger. They brought back Jackson Smith. Had a very, very senior heavy squad, heavy favorites going into that first round against Orem. And, you know, little Chance Dastrup come rolling in there with Trey Hyatt, Anthony Felicity, and guess what? Woods Cross got sent packing. Right? Yep. It can happen that fast, that quickly. And I think Woods Cross was a 3 seed that year, a 3 seed. So, you know, I know that he's going to be reminding his team about those things, but I think it is open. I think that anytime you run across, you know, anybody on any given night, you know, there's enough good guards and good shooters, you know, in this state on these teams. You know, Bradley Easton gets hot on you, and next thing you know, he's got 7 or 8 threes. I think he had like 6 or 7 threes in the first half of one of the games last year at the state tournament. You're going home, right? Yep. I don't care who you are and how many D1 guys you got. You're going to go home. So that's going to be the challenge for those top teams is to, you know, work through the season, keep it fresh, keep it hungry, and then finish the deal. But, you know, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see, and it's exciting to see how these new teams gel and if the ball can move enough to get everybody shots, because you can have all the talent in the world, but, you know, if there's no chemistry, you run across a team that does have the chemistry and the ball's popping on the right night, again, you know, you can get sent home very easily. So it's going to be fun to see.
All right. Well, then I will, we'll end it with, were there any other questions that we didn't, because I'm going to have you pick some, I'm going to have you pick your winner here on the podcast, but did we get to all of the questions?
Somebody said, can Timpview finally win it all this year? My response to that is going to be,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. They can win it all. If there was a surprise team, who would it be? I think that question, Adam, falls amongst that group that we talked about, right? I think you got Brighton, you got Alta, you got Olympus, you got Bountiful, you got Woods Cross, you got all those teams that I wouldn't be surprised if one of those jump up and make a little run, right? You get hot for a couple of weeks in a row, and you got good players. You got the Dash Risers, you got the Gavin Lowe's, you know, the Hunter Jacksons, the Bryson Heaths, Charlie Smiths. Like, you got those guys that can really make some stuff happen, right? Yep. Then obviously the last one here is, you know, Highland for the chip. So we talk a lot about Timpview. We talk a lot about Orem. Don't be surprised if Highland's there at the end of the day.
Okay, let me, as a described Highland homer, let me make my case, because that's my pick. Oh, spoiler alert. And the reason that I like, when I kind of thought through a hypothetical Highland Orem championship game or a Highland Timpview championship game, if both teams are healthy and eligible and clicking, because they've made it all the way there, right? Like, so I'm assuming a lot in this conversation. Sure. I actually like how Highland matches up defensively against both Timpview and Orem. I think that I think they can put a lot of pressure on those teams defensively, especially the guard play. I think that Jordan is one of the more underrated defenders. If you've never seen him play, he gets after guys.
Yeah, he does.
You know, Isaiah obviously is a tremendous on-ball defender. Jones has them coached the right way. You know, Jack Anderson is a great defensive player. Bodie Dodge is a great, like, they have a lot of defensive players. And so in a championship game, I think that defense is usually going to be the big, you know, kind of like leverage point in those moments, because you don't know how kids are going to lock up in the big arena. You don't know if they're going to be making shots. Players go cold in those moments, but you still got to, if you can defend, you can stay in a game until somebody gets hot. So that would be my case for as the Highland Homer, I guess, on the podcast. But that's who I and last year, if you recall, I went against the grain. I said I don't think that Corner Canyon or Dixie are going to win the state championship. Now, it was totally naive and completely lucky because I knew nothing about high school basketball, and then I had a bunch of podcast equipment and I wanted to talk about it. I feel a little bit more educated, so I'm probably going to be wrong. But
right,
that's my pick for 5A.
Got Highland.
I've got the Highland Rams, and not because I'm a Colorado State fan, although it would be exciting to be able to wear my Rams gear.
Right.
Yeah.
I know we have a mutual friend. I know that Tim Drisman would be happy with that pick. So he'll downplay it because that's what he does.
Oh, he'll hate the pick. He'll be like, "Why?"
Yeah, he might hate it too. That's true. Until the end, he's like, "I knew it, right?" But
yeah,
I think Tim is with us when he realizes they have some dudes, and I've told him that, like, you guys have some guys, right? You know, when it comes to, you know, picking how this is going to play out. Obviously, last year I called it the Dixie Invitational, right? Because I just didn't see anybody stopping them. And I know that they don't want me to call it this, but I think it's the Orem Invitational until we get to region and I see how that shakes down. Because I think that once you see how Timpview matches up with Orem, and I think they match up very well, I think that you're going to get a better indication of how it could play out. When I look at Timpview, I love what Isa brings defensively. I love Mason Ford and the matchup problems that he can create. You got guys that can pull the defense out, you know, and they can shoot the three, take them away from the basket, which allows some of those lanes. You know, we saw Rukert last year in the state tournament, cross right to left, go down the middle of the lane, and just, you know, throw down some hammers, right?
I was sitting with his dad during that game, and I just kept turning to him. He's like, yeah. I mean, this was against like Division I, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's the real deal.
He's
the real deal.
He's a special player.
He is. So, you know, if I had to pick, you know what, give me, and I think I said this like 2 years ago. I said, before it's said and done, I said Timpview will win a championship and Rukert will be the player of the year. I think I'm going to take Timpview if you have to, and it's only because I think they're the ones that can match up the best. I like Highland. I love the guard play, but I think that, you know, you have guys on Orem that are going to punish them down low, right? Defensively, I think offensively they can create problems, because you mentioned you got Trey Hyatt, you got Kai Wesley, and obviously Burgess can bring out Soren to and so, you know, how does that depth look, right? I think that you know, the guard play is going to be fun to watch if they get to that point. But, you know, I'm just such a fan. I love Openshaw and how he's developed playing with Utah Gold all summer. I love obviously Rukert and what he can do, and Ford and Isa. So give me Timpview, and we'll see what happens. But you know what? It could change. But until then, it's, you know, it's the Orem Invitational, baby. But
which means it's Orem. No, you're saying Timpview in the championship against Orem, or you're.
Yep, I'm saying Timpview takes on Orem in the championship. Obviously, a lot of those things have to fall in line matchup-wise. But you know, I think that Timpview is going to be there at the end, cutting the nets down. Would be my guess.
All right. Well, then they would be the definitive favorite then to repeat, because I don't think there's a single senior on that team. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, they'll be back there next year too.
Yeah,
even better.
Sure. But I'm sure that there will be some, what shall we call it here, AJ?
The transfer portal?
Unexpected player movement that will be happening. within the 5A.
We avoided that conversation for 55 minutes. Keep it moving.
Cool. By the way, I did do the Lord's work, and somebody was coming after Judge on like Deseret News, and I did finally create my own little thing, because they were saying how Judge needs to go independent because of all of their international students, and I was like, there's 0 on the team. And they're like, oh, I'm sure they just like randomly got these kids. I'm like, actually, and I explained the whole Sudan civil war and refugee resettlement, and how it's the Catholic Church is a big part of that, and Utah as a state, and blah blah blah. And like it just drives me crazy when people are like, no, you're the same. And I love what Coach Stanley's doing at LCA. I'm really stoked for them to be independent.
It's a good move for them.
It's great. It's a tremendous move for them. We have them opening night at Layton in exactly a week. So Judge plays LCA on Tuesday, and then at Orem on Wednesday.
Wow, so here we go.
We will get a Judge has LCA, Orem, Springville, and Wasatch Academy on the schedule.
It's funny because everybody last year was like, oh, they're an 11th seed. I'm like, they're not an 11th seed.
They're not an 11th seed.
Look who they played. If they played a 4A schedule or a 3A schedule, they would have went like 25-0. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, no,
pay attention to the schedule. And on that note, kudos to Sanyon for booking that type of schedule. I know that Orem has gone out and booked a crazy good schedule. That's what you do, right? If you got the horses, you let them run and you see what they got. And I love it. I think it's great. Obviously not every school can do that. But you know what? You want to put your guys in the best possible situation to compete against the best, because it only makes them better and it's fun to watch, right?
I told my son, I was like, listen, there's going to be guys that are going to be paid to play basketball. Like, you're going to have to go guard Isaiah Harwell.
Right. The last time I coached against Harwell, he had 35 points and like 9 dunks, and that was back in like young blood.
Yeah, no
story.
But it's like when do you get a chance to do that? Like Tim Drisdom still talks about when he got to go out and play against LeBron James, and is Isaiah Harwell going to be as impactful as LeBron James? That would be insane, because he's he's one of the best players of all time. I'm not going to go there, but he's in the one of category. He's not the best. It's Michael Jordan. But it's just cool. Like, I love it. I love I love the level of competition. I'm really excited for this year. People are probably not excited that we've been talking for an hour, or maybe they are. But this has been awesome, AJ. We'll be interacting on the Instagrams, and I'm sure it's gonna be a fun year. It's kicking off next week. So everybody follow Utah Ballerz on Instagram. You can follow me as well if you'd like, at @EAdamPeak. My first name is Edward. That's where the E comes from.
To spell the name right? It's Peek.
Yeah, it was funny that you tagged me with the right name, but you spelled it the wrong. It's happened to me my entire life. I grew up in the shadow of Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs.
Oh, there you go.
So trust me, I was zero offended.
AI
Jackson.
I apologize. Ironically, like, I had a guy the other day message me when I was talking about the Utah BYU game, saying that I obviously know nothing about ball. So I appreciate you bringing me on here to talk about the things that I had no clue about. I appreciate it.
Listen, we have combined, we have a little bit of clue. And so our forces combined have been great.
A little bit.
Well, thanks, AJ, for joining. And, preseason talk means nothing.
Go out and do it.
That ball gets tossed up. Go out and prove it.
See what you got. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Hey, AJ, hang out, and so I can get your side of the recording uploaded. All right. See y'all.